So apparently Grace's nerdy electrolyte chat in episode 1 was a hit and Grace is buzzing. And in a very wholesome plot twist, we now have Ocean, Grace's favourite electrolyte brand, sponsoring this whole series.
Honestly, it's a dream. And because they are angels, they've given us a juicy discount code just for Two's Company listeners. But first, I just want to remind you why electrolytes matter, even if you're not, say, a 10K loving, sweaty for fun athlete like Sophie over here.
I feel attacked already.
Hydration actually starts on a cellular level. Your cells don't just want plain water. In fact, too much non-mineral water can do more harm than good. They need minerals like magnesium, potassium, chloride, and sodium to get all their tiny, important cellular jobs done. And let's not forget that our cellular function is the backbone of our physiology and our health, folks. But here's the kicker. Because loads of electrolyte brands are basically salt slushies with random flavourings and sweeteners chucked in. And you really just don't need all that nonsense.
Okay, yes, I have definitely been drinking the nonsense once.
So Ocean is pure, simple, unadulterated goodness. No weird stuff. It comes in this very easy pump bottle, so you know exactly how much to measure into your glass. I tend to have it first thing in the morning, especially because you're at your most dehydrated first thing.
Wait, you're saying that my first thing cup of tea isn't hydration?
I'm saying we'll circle back to that with love and compassion, Soph.
Right. Anyway, Ocean are giving you 10% off with the code Two's Company. That's 2 the number, you know the drill. Pop that in at checkout at drinkocean.co, Ocean spelled OSHUN.
We genuinely love this stuff and we really hope you do too. Big thanks to Ocean.
Two's Company, Two's Company, Two's Company, Two's Company, Two's Company, Two's Company. But not 3, that's too much company.
Nailed it. Hello and welcome to episode 6 of season 2 of Two's Company with me, Grace Kingswell, nutritional therapist, and the multi-hyphenate Sophie Hellier.
Job titles aside, this season we're diving into all things that sit outside our day jobs, but right inside the middle of what fascinates, challenges, and occasionally morally puzzles us.
So this week we are talking about Dirty Business, which is the new documentary on Channel 4. It's all about the UK sewage scandal. Also discussing America's Next Top Model and the manosphere, plus what we've been getting up to, reading, and inevitably some lovely tangents we didn't plan on either.
Think of it as our curated chaos. We chat, question, laugh, and hopefully make you feel like you're having a proper natter with your best mate.
Okay, let's go.
So how's your week been, Grace? I thought you were going to have a lovely update of this wonderful holiday, but actually I think you're feeling a bit subpar, aren't you?
Yeah, it was really nice at the time. But, I mean, it's fine. My brother doesn't listen to this podcast, but his kids have passed on the most rotten, cold, flu-y thing to myself and Jude. We both seem to have like conjunctivitis and razor blade throats. And it's just sod's law, isn't it? It always happens. You go and hang out with family, one of them's really snotty, and then you come home and you get really sick. And it just makes me, under normal circumstances, it's frustrating. But being 32 weeks pregnant, it's extra frustrating because I'm like, I don't want to have to deal with this right now. I'm already dealing with a lot. But the house was very fancy. You're right. It's my mum's 70th. So it's a lovely family weekend. Lots of swimming and just hanging out, really. But that's about it. We're all poorly. I'm over it. I'm a bit pissed off. How are you?
I'm okay. Life's a little bit slow because my knee is still quite immobile after surgery 3 weeks ago.
Oh, I saw on your stories that you were like you were in a knee brace again. Have you gone backwards?
I just ice it every day. It's not backwards. It takes, 6 months to a year to heal. So just because I'm walking around, like my knee's very swollen, I can't bend it very much. But otherwise, work's busy, family's otherwise healthy. Things are good. I was away working in Bristol for 4 or 5 days last week, which was really fun. I was running an event at the Wave called Blue Health Reset, I was leading people through cold immersion, sauna, breathwork, and surf lessons, which was really, really fun. But
really sad that you couldn't surf because of your knee.
Oh, stop. When I booked this job, I basically thought I was going to go surfing for 4 days. Non-stop, and obviously I just had to look at the wave for 4 days, which was slightly torturous. And I was camping, which was brave in March. It was pretty cold.
Yeah, those few days were really cold. I've heard that those tents at the Wave get seriously freezing overnight because that your fire will go out, and then at some point you'll realize that you are frozen.
Yeah. Anyway, because I was away for 4 days, I got to watch lots of TV. So should we have a jingle and talk about all the TV I watched?
Yeah.
I've read 2 books and I've watched TV. I've got some stuff to recommend to thee.
Is it highbrow, lowbrow, or some other kind of stuff?
It's Culture Corner for cultural fluff. So I forgot to talk about this last week, but have you seen Dirty Business on Channel 4?
I watched the first episode last night. I'm really glad I did because Nick and I watched it and we said to each other, we need to watch more stuff like this. But I'm so bad at watching things that are important in the evening. Like I just want to watch like frivolous fluff before bedtime, because otherwise when I'm awake in the night, I start thinking about, like last night I was thinking about the manosphere and it makes me angry and sad, and then I don't sleep very well. I just want to watch Bridgerton. But yeah, I've started watching it and let's discuss. Sickening.
So, slight correction from the introduction. You said it was a documentary. It's a docudrama. So it's a dramatized version of true events about the UK sewage scandal. And it tells the story from the 90s right up to the present day of how pollution in our rivers and seas became normalized, and the devastating human cost behind the headlines, including the story of a young girl who died in the late 90s after contracting E. coli. And I think it really shines a light on corruption and scandal within the Environment Agency and environmental negligence from our government.
Yeah, I think actually the fact that it is dramatized makes it so hard hitting, doesn't it? And I'm also really enjoying that element of it. I looked over to the other sofa last night and Nick Kingswell was crying when the little girl was dying in hospital. Oh, it's just awful. But yeah, one thing I will say is that my best friend in Australia on Phillip Island works for the water board out there. And when this docu-series drama came out, I showed her your reel about how you'd been made into a statue and told her like a little bit about, you know, how there was a young girl that died from E. coli. And she honestly had a field day. She couldn't believe that it had ever happened. I mean, it would never, that kind of thing would just never, ever, ever happen in Australia. And yeah, I guess it all goes back to good old Maggie Thatcher and the privatization of everything. And now we have these huge companies. The one in the documentary is actually an Australian company called Macquarie Group, that just come in, buy up a business like that, liquidate everything, don't give a shit about anything to do with the infrastructure, and then just make a massive profit and move on. Zero moral compass. And it's shocking, frightening, and like, yeah, it just makes you sick to your stomach.
Fact check me on this, but I think that we are the only country in the world that has a fully privatized water industry.
Mad, isn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't work. So you just mentioned the statue. As part of the promotion for the series, I took part in a political stunt because of my own personal story and how sewage nearly killed me when I was 18. So I was turned into a bronze statue vomiting dirty water, which was part of a rather confronting fountain installation on the South Bank. So I was one of, I think, 12 water users. And it generated this huge press coverage. And it was designed to spark outrage and conversation with the hope that the programme would have a similar effect too. Did you watch the Miss Debates versus the Post Office?
No.
It was it's like docudrama, but it led to like real political change because of the awareness and discussion and campaigning around it. So I'm hoping that in a similar way, Dirty Business is going to drive genuine political and environmental change.
Yeah, I mean, it's really being talked about a lot, isn't it? And I think definitely the fact that it's a dramatization is helping. I mean, my parents have watched it, and in that cute way that they do when they are over the age of 70, they haven't stopped talking about it. Maybe they've forgotten. But yeah, it's hello, Mum and Dad. I know you listen to this podcast. But I'm looking forward to watching the next episodes, but also it's just very hard hitting and very hard to watch, isn't it? Because you think something that's necessary for survival, like water, should not be anything that anyone is profiting off. Just feels just so uncomfortable.
Agree. And I really recommend the show. But or not, but as well. What I couldn't tell anyone at the time because I was under NDA, I don't even think I've told you, but I've been dying to talk about it, was the very bizarre experience of being 3D scanned for the sculpture. So I traveled up to London in December. You have to picture this. There's a man with a 3D scanner and then a male director and maybe 3 producer type men on laptops on the sofas. And then there's me in swimwear on all fours with my mouth open while they captured every angle. And it felt incredibly strange and awkward. I really felt like I was being scanned for some AI porno, and I just have these visions of an alien dick being put in my mouth. I was really questioning my life choices. Anyway, I'm very glad the fountain turned out well and made such a bold statement and went viral, so to speak, because honestly, the scanning process was so weird.
I really feel like they could have like warned you about that or provided some sort of safeguarding slash intimacy coordinator. Like, was it there weren't any women in the room? It was just all men.
No women in the room, but just the like being on all fours with my mouth open in a swimsuit in a room full of men
Yeah.
really didn't feel good.
I did have one question for you off the back of watching this series. Has it made you reconsider drinking tap water? Would you now think about maybe filtering your water?
No, I still drink tap water.
Okay, moving on.
I also watched the America's Next Top Model documentary. I used to watch it back when it first aired, which was around the same time I started modeling, so like when I was about 15. And although it was never directly relevant to my own path, I always found it very intriguing. Did you watch it?
I think every series I watched, I was really...
Every 25 series?
I also watched all of the other top models, so like the other countries' ones.
Yeah, I watched the British one, obviously, yeah.
Yeah. I remember Tanya Banks's smize and how she would teach them Tyra, sorry. Okay, clearly I don't remember it very well. Tyra Banks is smizing, but I don't remember a lot else, save for obviously, you know, the inevitable awfulness of it all, which I absolutely wasn't aware of at the time, e.g. the male gaze, the victimization of women, etc., etc. I think I just enjoyed it for what it was at my young age.
Yeah, looking back now with the 2026 lens, it does feel quite horrifying. I do still vividly remember moments from it that stayed with me. There was one girl, don't remember the names, but one girl who spent 12 hours in the dentist chair getting veneers. And that was the first time I'd ever even heard of veneers. And I was so shook from it. I've never forgotten that. And there's also some deeply uncomfortable situations being filmed without intervention, like very vulnerable drunk girls essentially being raped. So they're like being, you know, viewed through today's lens, very exploitative, very troubling, shouldn't have happened on camera. There's the whole issue of like body image and representation. Girls who were plus size were basically my size, maybe smaller, like a UK 10. There was these problematic shoots where girls did blackface, so all the white models made themselves black.
I remember this now, yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember the one where they all had like meat on them, like meat knickers and bras and stuff? Like raw steak pants. So
no, but do you remember Lady Gaga going down the red carpet in a dress made of meat?
Yes, she must have got the idea from Next Top Model.
Yeah.
I think overall there's just a real sense that the mental and physical well-being of the contestants wasn't ever protected. And then at the same time, it's telling the story of how Tyra Banks was trying to push for a more diverse modelling industry, which makes the legacy of the show like a bit more complicated because it's not as straightforwardly negative. Like she really did want to get more diverse models. But anyway, it's a fascinating and uncomfortable piece of TV history to revisit. I definitely think that documentary is worth a watch if you're interested in how modelling and I guess like early reality TV culture collided.
Something else we've both watched, although again, I've watched one episode so far, or maybe half of one episode.
It's not episodes, it's one long thing.
One long thing that's an hour and a half. I've watched half. I don't know if I'm going to watch the other half, but it's the Manosphere documentary by Louis Theroux. Also, do you love how lots of the people that he interviewed have no idea how to say his surname? Did you notice? Did you pick up on
Yeah,
that?
he was like,
One of them
"But
was
they're
like,
so young, Louis Theroux or something."
yeah, the rocks. I was like, oh, mate. So yeah, everyone's talking about the manosphere, and in this documentary, he explores the online world of male-dominated influencer culture, looking at kind of ideas around masculinity, power, and identity, and how it's being hugely distorted by these really, really famous young men. Well, actually, they're not all that young. There was one guy who was like, seemed like he was definitely kind of more middle-aged.
Yeah, some of the guys are our age for sure.
It was really, I mean, it was news to me. Again, I found it a really uncomfortable watch. And the thing that it made me reflect on the most, I think, is how terrifying social media is and how terrifying social media has the possibility to be. And the dangers that come from largely unregulated people with huge followings who have really, what's the word, whose views are incredibly
Dangerous.
troublesome. Yeah, dangerous and troublesome.
I wrote notes. Would you like to hear them?
Yeah.
Feel free to interrupt me when you wish. Number 1, it left me feeling very scared. That was my overall sense of feeling after watching it, scared. And I'll go into this more in my last note. 2, I think all parents should watch this so that we're aware of what's going on. Young boys are basically being indoctrinated into becoming misogynistic pieces of shit. And it's not just parents of teenagers who should be watching it. Our young boys, who are currently 4, are going to be very influenced by the boys who are a generation older than them. So it is really scary for our sons. Number 3. It's all a scam. It's basically MLMs. The men at the top are bankrolling this ideology that benefit directly from the men below them staying miserable. And they're selling this script. You hear them all just repeating this script. It doesn't allow for any nuance. So if you disagree with the script, then you're out. Like, it's actually not free thinking. It's more like a cult. You have to follow the script, believe what they say. And if you say anything else, you're out.
Yeah. And also, if you do everything they say, you'll be as successful and wealthy as they are. But like, we all know that's not true.
Yeah, it's a scam. 4. Hang on, how many notes do I have? 7. Bear with me. They're instilling in young boys that they have no values. They're basically teaching young boys to hate themselves. If you are poor and unsuccessful, like, I know that that's really hard, but I don't know why that's a woman's fault. Like, perhaps we should be blaming the patriarchy and capitalism, but for some reason they're blaming it on women.
Yeah, I found this point really intriguing that can't remember the guy's name. He's the middle-aged one that wears lots of suits. He was saying
the one
that,
who looks completely different on all the photos. He looks so handsome, and then you
yes,
see
and
him
then
in the
in
video,
real
and he's
life,
like
he's
actually
really
scrawny and gross.
Actually, one of the things that I did think is that all of these men are like, they're not fit. But it's the charm and the bravado and the confidence, isn't it? But anyway, this one really shocked me because he was basically saying, as a man, when you are born, you have no value whatsoever. But women, when they're born, have value because of their beauty, because they already have boobs and boobs and a vagina or something.
That's their whole script. Women are born with their value. Men have no value. So men have to earn their value by being successful, by getting a good job, by having a nice car. That's the whole script, which basically means men are taught to literally hate themselves.
Yeah, which is terrible. It's also just perpetuating that idea that women's values should be attached to the way that we look, which is obviously completely ridiculous. No.
Number 5. So the men in this show are seeking the approval of other men. There's one guy, again, I don't know any of their names, don't care. HS Tiki Toki.
HS, yeah. This is this guy.
HS Tiki Toki. What is your name? There's a moment he films himself getting a blowjob and he shows it to Louis and his mates. And it's really clear to me the moment of connection isn't the moment where he's having a blowjob from a woman. The moment of connection he's seeking is showing the video to his mates, to his guy friends.
Yeah, he calls it clout. He says it's he said it's clout in it, and I was like, yeah, is it?
I'm fairly sure most of the men in this documentary are like closeted gay men, but that's not the point. The point is, I think they're desperately seeking connection, which leads me to point number 6. What we have here are vulnerable, lonely boys and young men, and also older men. And I think they're getting so close to getting it right. A lot of what they're saying is true. So underneath all this like red pill language, they're talking about being disposable, about working jobs that they feel undervalued in, being in a world that's not built for them to succeed. And I think they're right. They're just wrong about why. I shared a video of a woman on Instagram who spoke really eloquently about this. They're like so close to critiquing capitalism and patriarchy. And those systems are failing people. They're failing all of us. But for some reason, at the last minute, they're blaming it on women, Jews, and immigrants instead of patriarchy. It just doesn't
Mm.
make any sense.
I did think, I mean, he is brilliant in it, isn't he? Like, just the questions he asks, the way he comes across, the fact that he backs people into corners and they don't even realize because he's just so much more intelligent.
I
And
love Louis.
HS
I
Tiki
love,
Toki took off after the first day, didn't he? Because he realized that he was not going to be getting
yeah.
a gleaming review, and he was like, "Oh, I have to fly to somewhere. I've got busy stuff to do." But I know you haven't got to point 7 yet, but I am really terrified, or not terrified, but I think a lot about this concept of raising a boy in the world that we now live in. I don't know if I've mentioned it on this podcast before. Maybe I have, but there is a really good podcast called To Be a Boy. I think we've spoken about it before. It's hosted by the lady that did Pregnant Then Screwed, which is also that great podcast. It raises amazing, amazing facts and just really interesting discussions about how do we raise our young men. And there's some also like really shocking statistics in there about things like by the time your kid is 12, they will have watched porn, even if it's not on a device that's theirs. They'll just have like been exposed to it at school or something like that. And like, it's horrible to me that I have to think about this stuff, but we all do, because it's so important that we get this right as parents, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, point 7.
I'll say there is an epidemic of violence against women and girls worldwide. And I think this show is great for sparking conversation, but it doesn't go into the real world implications of that. These men, as you see in the manosphere, if you get towards the end of it, they are going into politics. These men are reaching their 30s and going into politics. They are making laws against our bodies. They're making laws about what is and isn't rape, abortion laws. Like, it is terrifying that they're indoctrinating boys and young men, and these men are growing up and going into politics, and they will control and have say over our bodies. Terrifying.
One of them's friends with Donald Trump. Which one was that?
Yeah. I think that suity guy that looked completely different in the picture.
The older guy. Yeah.
Ginger guy. Anyway,
don't-
that's a lot of seriousness in TV. Do you want to say anything else? Because I was going to swing it to something more frivolous.
Well, no, let's talk about something frivolous, but I just wanted to say that, like, I don't know what to do in like life anymore. Like, it's so like the world is so overwhelming. Like, how do we live? Like, even just, talking about the Dirty Water documentary and then talking about something like this and then reading the news, and then you've got people in power like Donald Trump, and it's like, I feel like it's all building towards something. I've said this before. It's really scary. And my husband and I talk all the time about, where do we go? Like, I feel like there's no escaping all of these awful things. And I don't want to be all doom and gloom about it, but I'm like, think about it when we record this episode, and then I just like go on with my life and, like live in my bubble.
We mentioned this like briefly on the last episode, that we are really, really privileged to live in a country that is safe. We aren't being bombed. There aren't missiles raining down on us. Our government aren't, sending ICE agents to our houses. But I think, there's also the feeling that that is fragile and that is unstable. And we aren't necessarily going to live in a country that's peaceful for our entire lifetime. Like you say, it feels like it's building up to something. I think that we start at home, and I think like that's all we can do, right? Is sign the petitions, vote wisely in elections, go to the protests we feel passionately about, and start small.
Yeah.
Where do we go? We'll dig a bunker in the meantime.
Okay. Moving on to, do we have a jingle? We need a fashion jingle, because I love to talk about it.
We don't have a jingle, but I've got a little segue sound that Nick Kingswell made us on his guitar or something that I'll play.
Okay, the one that's like do 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 do.
Yeah.
Like an elevator. So I'm very confused about bags at the moment. Hold on, I think I'm going to have to sneeze. Maybe it's gone away. So I want a practical bag, as practical as, the Uniqlo crossbody bag that everybody has. I'm over it. I'm over the ugly Uniqlo crossbody bag. But I want something that is as practical as that. And I've seen that they now do this like scrunched one, and scrunched stuff is everywhere. And I got the the Labo Mono one, which is not really a day-to-day thing. It's very sporty looking. It's useful for travel. But then I think about it and I'm like, I don't even need a bag in Cornwall because we drive. We have to get in the car to go anywhere. You just have
Big
like,
pockets, lots of pockets.
yeah, just have like my lip balm and a bottle of water in the car. Like, I don't need a handbag. And I feel like if I lived, I kind of resent that actually. If I lived in a town or even still a city, I would have like a bag and it would, every time you add an element to an outfit, it's like I don't know. I found this new account on Instagram. I did send you her reel. She does hot mum outfits and she starts every
Oh, yeah, she
reel.
was good, yeah.
Yeah, she starts every reel with, let's do some more hot mum outfits. By the way, if you're a mum, you're a hot mum, which I love. And it's all like there's so many accessories. I don't know why I care. I do.
I quite wanted that APC, like the semicircle one, but it's always black and gold, and it's like 250 quid. And I don't have that much money.
I
So I
actually
bought,
thought you had that bag.
No, I bought a more sustainable version from Matt and Nat, which is Material and Nature. So they make vegan, sustainable, environment better bags. And I think my bag was £40.
So
Less,
I
maybe.
still have in the top of my wardrobe there, I have a storage box full of designer handbags from like back in the day when I used to work in fashion.
That would go so moldy in my house.
I also think it's so hilarious that I sit here and talk about fashion because these days I just get dressed off the floor based on where I put my clothes the night before. I did used to work in fashion, but these days I'm so far away.
Are we wearing an identical outfit? I'm wearing a massive Dams and Madder t-shirt. Are you?
Yeah, check.
And then I'm wearing
Stretchy
Beyond
black
9
trousers?
pregnancy Mabels.
I'm wearing H&M like pregnancy
Oh,
black
thought we might have the
trousers.
identical. FYI, I'm not pregnant. I'm just wearing pregnancy trousers because they're comfy.
So I still have loads of really nice bags, but I never use them in Cornwall, and it just I don't know if anyone can like solve this issue for me. And also, in a few weeks' time, I'm going to need a nappy bag again, aren't I?
Oh God, no, I never used a nappy bag really. Put them in the center console of your car, you'll be fine.
I also want some ballet flats at the moment. My 16-year-old self, remember Marissa from the OC era?
Obviously, yes.
Yeah, ballet flats and then a tank top and like a low slung mini skirt. That was my look for so many years and I loved it. So I'm thrilled that, they're back in fashion. However, they are a terrible shape for someone with a wide foot and they're just like not foot shaped, are they? They're just a really awful shoe. Terrible for your foot anatomy. But have you seen the ones from Maison Margiela which have like, it's like a hoof?
The toe.
It's like a
Yeah,
hoof.
everyone online,
Actually
fashion influencers are wearing the hoof.
I actually love them. All hail the ugly shoe.
No, I'm not offended by a ballet flat. Completely impractical and uncomfortable, but I like the look of it. Not doing the hoof. Thank you very much. And I also, Marissa never did it for me. I was always more of a Rachel Bilson. What was her name?
Summer.
She was way hotter and cooler, in my opinion.
No, I was a Marissa fan. Yeah.
If we're harking back to the OC.
I've also given up on trying to replace my Salomon XT6s, having said that I bought them and then I wasn't sure. I've decided they're actually very easy to style and I should just keep them. And I'm also so excited for not being pregnant and being able to wear like stuff on my waist. I'm so fed up of like clothes right now. And I was browsing the other day. Remember Topshop? Obviously, everyone remembers Topshop, but we sort of shouldn't because Philip Green was a twat. But it was so good. And it always like, it was. No, it was. It was so good.
Okay,
Anyway.
hold on. I'm going to say fashion-wise, like obviously we all grew up loving Topshop and I still love loads of the stuff they make. We have to just quickly acknowledge that it's fast fashion, it's probably made by slaves and it's really bad for the environment. Continue.
I know. But I think about this all the time now that you're a fashion influencer. I'm like, but hold on, she's really like pro the environment, but
I am not a fashion influencer. I wear the same clothes every day. So no.
Well, you'll be pleased to know I've not bought anything from Topshop online now that it's online at ASOS.
You didn't buy those trousers you sent me?
No, I just sent you a link saying these are so nice. I don't really own many clothes.
I'm going to try and segue from you being pregnant into my next topic.
But also, just quickly, if the listeners are stylish, fashionable gals, can you write to us and just like tell me what I should be wearing? Because I'd love to hear from you.
I'm going to Truro tomorrow to get a burner phone for the podcast. So next week we'll have a phone number that you can voice note us on, and you better, or I'll feel like a loser that has a podcast that no one listens to.
I thought you were going to say, I'm going to Truro to go shopping. And I was going to say, you're an idiot because it sucks. And we have no shops.
No, I'm actually going to Truro. I've got a big photo shoot overseas next week, and my roots are really bad, so I'm just going in to get my roots melted a little bit. Anyway.
Melted? Sorry, you're talking to the girl that's never ever dyed her hair. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, so I don't really get like highlight. I had highlights ages ago, and as they grow out, they melt it. So she puts like a toner on the root that drags my natural color like into the blonde, so it just looks kind of naturally grown out.
Sounds a bit
Very
terrifying,
quick and easy,
to be honest.
Well, I'll see you tomorrow, and you can tell me my hair looks fabulous.
Okay.
I listened to a very interesting episode of the Slow Newscast this week. That's one of my favorite podcasts. It sent me into a little existential spiral. You know, you think you're just going to go for a nice little walk, listen to a podcast, and then suddenly you're like, cool, the future is actually terrifying. A bit like what we've just been discussing. It was all about what's basically designer genetics. So companies offering IVF parents increasingly detailed genetic testing on embryos, not just testing for serious inherited diseases, which of course feels like something that many families would be hugely grateful for, but also predicting things like potential height, eye color, IQ or estimated IQ, and the risks of like literally thousands of conditions. I find it really complicated. On one hand, if you were told you had two embryos, one was very likely to develop a devastating disease and the other wasn't, most of us would take the same choice, right? And this isn't hypothetical for me necessarily. I'm a carrier of Tay-Sachs, which is a truly awful genetic disorder. I know I carry that because I got fully genetic tested when I was an egg donor. So when I got pregnant, we had to get Johnny tested so we could understand the risks. And, you know, if Johnny was a carrier, we probably would have terminated. So I completely understand the instinct to try and prevent suffering where you can. But what feels different now is this isn't about preventing illness. This is like potentially optimizing humans. I just think it feels quite scary. You know, who decides what an optimal human is? I think history has pretty dark answers to that. It's basically eugenics. I think there's this huge layer of financial privilege that only wealthy people might be able to genetically stack the odds for their children. I think it's quite dystopian. And yeah, lastly, I just want to say some of the best people I know aren't the most academically gifted. You know, they're not going to score well on an IQ test, but they are funny and they're kind and they're chaotic and they're warm. And I just think you can't screen an embryo for a brilliant sense of humor. And I don't know, I just came away from this podcast feeling slightly chilled about where we might be heading. So nice light topic for you again. But as an IVF mum of nearly 2 children, can you hear my dog barking?
I can.
Ugh, sorry guys. She's so annoying. We've done an episode on I Hate My Dog, so revert back to that. Yeah, as an IVF mum, any thoughts on that, Grace?
Yeah, I mean, all the same opinions as you, to be honest. And I am aware that couples are seeking out AFT cycles abroad because sometimes those countries are offering more of this style of testing. And I do think it's hugely problematic. But I can't see things going the other way necessarily. I mean, with infertility rates just sky high now, and really that's not going to change. It's going to keep getting worse because of many different factors, but namely our toxic soup that we live in and our lifestyles and etc. It's inevitable that more and more couples are going to have ART cycles, which stands for assisted reproductive technologies, in order to have children. And with fertility testing being fertility generally, being such a big business, let's not forget the scandal. I think we talked about it in episode 1 of this series. I just think clinics are probably going to try and compete with each other to offer like more and more and more. Yeah, a lovely light topic to almost end on.
I'm sat here drinking my electrolytes like a good girl, even though half the internet is telling me not to drink electrolytes. But it does mean that I'm desperate for a wee. So play a jingle while I run for a wee. I'm actually ready for a wee.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Explain it to me unprofessionally.
I'll keep it short and concise.
Yeah, that'd be nice. I've just noticed that there's like something spilt all down my t-shirt, which must have got a baby chino on me on the beach. Oh well. Okay.
Isn't your favourite thing about toddlers how they wipe their snotty noses on your clothing? Anyway, I digress. So let's have an explain it to me jingle.
No, we've already had it while I went for a weed, doofus.
Oh, okay, sorry. We've talked about this before and you just like shut me down. So this could be quite funny. Why do cyclists cycle in the middle of the road? I understand. No, let me finish what I'm saying before you just talk all over what I'm saying. I get that it's safer, but it's also quite annoying when you live on like small country lanes. I also think, I'm a hypocrite because if I had a bike, I probably would also cycle in the middle of the road. But I also think that groups of like 10 cyclists should be banned on tiny country lanes because how do you, especially when they don't stick together as a group and they're really spread out, how are you ever supposed to get past them?
I'm trying to take a deep breath here. Okay. The level of hate at cyclists winds me up so much. I think it's so ridiculous. Grace, this is quite literally the highway code. So you have to leave at least 1.5 meters. That's about 5 feet, I think, when you overtake a cyclist up to 30 miles an hour. And if you're going faster than 30 miles an hour, you need to leave more than 5 feet. And if you can't overtake with enough space, and you shouldn't overtake at all, the cyclists riding centrally in the lane to stop people squeezing past them when it's unsafe. It's not to be annoying. It's to prevent, dangerous overtakes, which could literally kill them. And on the group's point, yeah, I understand on a tiny country lane, 10 cyclists together can feel like a lot, but riding in a group is often safer. I feel much safer riding in a group. And you're more visible. But just putting the law aside for a moment, people who are cycling are commuting, exercising, doing sport, good for the health, good for the environment. I think it's something we should be encouraging, not getting annoyed at. And people forget that when we're riding our bikes, we are completely exposed. One bad overtake, it's not just a close call, it can literally be life or death. I just think at the end of the day, if you hit cyclists because you haven't given enough space, like that's potentially someone's life. You could leave someone without a parent or a partner or a friend. And I think, you're losing like 10, 15 seconds waiting to overtake them safely. So dear listeners, don't drive like dickheads. Give the cyclists some space. People hating cyclists winds me up, man.
I knew this would happen. Basically, we had nothing to go in the explain it to me section. So I just thought, what can I ask that's really going to wind Sophie up? Because I'm not one of those people. I give cyclists lots of space and I'm never usually in a hurry. So I'm happy to just like sit behind them. But thank you for explaining the highway code to me. That was really kind. I used to cycle. The university I went to was pretty much, we just cycled everywhere. So I'm also really used to that feeling of like a car overtaking you and it being way too close for comfort. And if I didn't live on the top of a hill, I would also 100% cycle around our village because it's such a joy. Going out for a cycle on a summer's afternoon, just like pootling along the country lanes is lovely. But I wouldn't be like wearing lycra. Anyway, next week you can ask me an explain it to me question and hopefully I'll be a bit nicer to you in my response. So, let's do the mailbag. Send us an email if you're a really cool female. Ooh, you're such a cool female. Send us a letter to make us feel better. You make us feel better. Time for the mailbag. Time for the mailbag.
As anticipated, the whole internet loves astrology. We're the only two people who don't care much about star signs. Charlie, didn't write down her whole name. Charlie wrote in to say she needs to know which one of us is the Capricorn because I don't care about astrology. It's textbook Capricorn. So Grace Kingswell, are you a Capricorn?
Yeah, I am. That's so good. That's brilliant. That's actually
I also
brilliant.
saw you had a few discussions with people and they were like, I'm going to guess what star sign you are, or these are all the traits about you. And you were like, oh shit, they're right.
They are, no, but they were so right. And someone said something like, we need Capricorns like you to like keep us grounded or something. I thought, oh, she's sort of giving me a compliment. I'll take that. Yeah, oops.
Someone sent in a long and very interesting when I read it message about that actually being 13 zodiacs, not 12. So apparently it's all inaccurate anyway, but I lost the message and I haven't fact checked it, but it sounded legit.
Well, when you have your burner phone, this will all be there. So it'd be great.
Yes. Joanna emailed in. She said, I am a peasant with no Instagram, so I'm emailing in like it's the 90s. I'm just going to correct her and say, I think the noughties. I don't think we really emailed in the 90s. Anyway, she says, Grace, what smut are you reading at the moment?
Oh, amazing. Well, I am reading, Joanna, the second novel in the Quicksilver series, which is called Brimstone. 10 out of 10. It's got fae, vampires, sexy time. It's great.
Sorry, what's fae? What's fae?
Okay, so right, in the romantasy genre, I would prefer to call it romantasy rather than smut. You're either like a human or you're a fae, and the fae have like magical powers and they have really long lifespans and they're always really good looking.
It's not a fairy then. It's just
No,
like
it's not a
a
fairy, and they
magical
have
being.
Yeah, they have like pointed ears.
Do the magical beings and the humans shag?
Yeah, but oftentimes what happens is that someone starts off as a human and then they end up as like a fae or a vampire so that they can be mated with the fae and have like a ridiculously long lifespan. Sounds ridiculous as I'm explaining it, but what I will say is I had a break from romantasy and I did read J.K. Rowling writes under a fake name, which is, I believe, Daniel Galbraith. And she has...
Is that because everyone hates her?
Because she got cancelled, yeah. She got cancelled.
Okay, just do a fake name, keep making money. Go for it.
And there's a series of books called the Strike series, and they're detective novels. They've been dramatised for BBC, and it's so good. Anyway, I read a couple of those, and then I was like, I need to go back to romantasy. So yeah, there's a good recommendation for any of you.
We really need to round this up. We're running out of time.
Well, if you enjoyed the episode, please follow the show on Apple Podcasts so each episode magically appears on your phone, and give us a nice little 5 stars. That would be lovely. Thank you so much. Big thanks to the lovely Alice, who left us a wonderful review last week saying that our podcast is addictive and makes her giggle and smile and it lifts her day.
Yes, we read all of our messages and reviews, even though I managed to lose some of them, but we appreciate them so much. So thank you for listening and engaging and being a little part of our corner of the podcast world.
On with the day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Back to my sick child.
Two's company, two's company, two's company, two's company, two's company, two's company, but not 3. That's too much company.
Nailed it. Thank you so much again to Ocean for sponsoring this entire series of the podcast. We are very grateful and also thrilled to be spreading the word about such a lovely brand.
Yes, and Ocean are giving our listeners 10% off with the code Two's Company. That's 2, the number, you know the drill. Pop that in at checkout at drinkocean.co. Ocean is spelled OSHUN. And thank you so much.
I say H, not H. Find that weird. Thank you so much to Ocean. Bye-bye.